From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Thanks for joining the McLaughlin Group, a show where friends disagree agreeably. I'm your host, Tom Rogan. This week's panelists are the author and columnist Pat Buchanan, the Daily Beast's Eleanor Clift, the Chicago Tribune's Clarence Page, and Siraj Hashmi of the Washington Examiner. Okay, let's get to issue 1, NATO's 70th birthday.
Well, he's too fast.
Do you think that Germany is too naive?
And honestly, he's a nice guy. I find him to be a very nice guy. But, you know, the truth is that I called him out on the fact that he's not paying 2%, and I guess he's not very happy about it.
President Trump met with 28 fellow leaders of the NATO alliance in London this week. While a hot mic rejoinder by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau raised the president's anger, the summit was a success. Turkey supported a plan to increase security assistance for Poland and the Baltics, and allies reaffirmed their commitment to increase spending towards a 2% defense spending target. Still, with NATO now 70 years old, some say the alliance is no longer fit for purpose.
Pat, what was the biggest takeaway from the summit? And do you think, on that exigent question, that NATO is fit for purpose?
I think you just made the point. Every one of these, or many of these countries in Europe, have upped their contributions. I think there's 100 billion more. So it's a success from that standpoint. But basically, I think NATO, they had a rough time, Trump did with his friends, who were laughing at his expense. But basically, I think NATO's got a real problem. You know, the Scottish National Party wants to get rid of the Trident. Macron said it's brain dead. He's talking about a European army. The Greeks are leasing the port of Piraeus to the Chinese. A number of the Eastern Europeans are in friendly relations with Russia. The key to NATO is Article 5, which says, in effect, if any of 26 European countries is attacked, the United States will go to war against Russia. I hope and pray that's never called, because I don't think we would.
Okay, Eleanor.
Wow, that's all I can say. This American president is the first president since NATO was created to undermine the organization and to not fully endorse Article 5, which is the core of this military alliance. And it was created to restrain Russia, Soviet Union originally, Russia, and Russia is still trying to expand its boundaries. And the president is once again doing Putin's work by creating these divisions. And he looks foolish on the world stage. And for the first time, the Biden campaign has actually jumped into this and released an ad basically saying, is this the kind of leadership that we want? We can't afford another 4 years of this. And when the French President Macron said brain dead, he was talking about U.S. leadership. Because without U.S. leadership, NATO cannot be effective.
I'd like to push back against that, because who was the president in 2014 when Russia invaded Ukraine? Because Trump was not the first president to undermine Article 5 of NATO. It's obvious Barack Obama could have acted against Russia when they invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea. I think with respect to NATO, I think Trump did make some push on policy to get other world leaders to increase their spending on NATO to 2% GDP. Sure, the optics don't look great, him being made fun of, but at the same time, in 2011, when Trump was being made fun of at the White House Correspondents' Dinner for not running for president by Barack Obama himself, what did he end up doing? He ended up running in 2016 and winning the whole thing.
Okay. Clarence?
Yeah. And since then, he's been leading from behind, kind of pulling NATO back and contributing to its disruption. There's a good argument to be made for the need for NATO to modernize. I mean, we're in the era now of cyber crimes, cyber terrorism, et cetera, that we have not really come together that well across borders to deal with. And we see, even though it's working on our elections right now, invading us even as we speak.
And Russia isn't the biggest threat. The biggest threat is China and their cybersecurity and the idea that some of these NATO allies want to use Huawei for their 5G network. And when we've accused Huawei of committing espionage in the United States, in addition to the fact that China has been labeled as a currency manipulator, you cannot deal with the Chinese, and we should not allow NATO allies to do the same.
NATO should be modernized to confront these other challenges, but it is fundamentally a military alliance. And when you say Obama could have acted against Russia when they invaded Crimea, what? You wanted him to call Article 5 into being there? That's not what Article 5 is about. So you were trying to blame Obama for the shortages that you see in NATO is a bit of circuitous thinking.
Well, thank goodness Ukraine wasn't in NATO. Thank goodness Georgia wasn't in NATO in 2008 when John McCain was urging us, we're all Georgians now. Does anybody think that if the Russians moved into Estonia, Spain and Italy and Portugal would go to war against Russia? We better pray to the Lord that's never challenged, because I can't believe the Germans spend 1.5%
1.3,
1.4 I saw of GDP on defense. These folks are all going to go to war against Russia?
But I just think
this thing is 70 years old.
Well, Russia's not invading because they do know they went up against the NATO alliance.
Russia's not invading because they don't want Estonia back. They gave it up.
Like nobody wants nuclear war.
Then why?
Either,
why do the Russians harass Estonian politicians who are favorable to the West if they don't want it back?
Well, they harass a lot of people, but what they took is what was strategic. Crimea, the eastern Ukraine broke away. It's Russified. They stood by their friends. But when have they gone? Putin has been in power 20 years. What has he done in Europe in all that time? The Russians don't want the empire back. They're glad they're rid of it.
I don't believe that they don't want the empire back. Fiona Hill wrote an excellent psychological profile of Putin, which basically says he wants to restore the empire. And they're always talking about the Russian-speaking populations in those Baltic states. And the president is basically giving them a green light. I just don't get why conservatives suddenly are so in love with Russia and think Russia is totally benign.
Let me tell you, let me explain it to you. We were anti-communists. Right. We're not anti-Russians. When the Russians threw over communism, the Warsaw Pact broke up, the Soviet Empire broke up, the Soviet Union broke up into 15 nations. They went home. We said, why don't we go home too?
That's why we're raising the red flags on China, because the Chinese Communist Party is above all the greatest threat to the United States and U.S.
communism. We love.
It's always been about communism.
These countries, and we're not at all competitive with them. We
love
them as long as they're not communists.
Russia is a threat, but they're not as big of a threat as China right now.
China, I mean, we're customers of China, or they're the lenders who've been bailing us out since the Reagan days in the 80s. They don't want to have war with us either, but they don't mind a little economic war here and there.
Yeah, cyber war is the real threat right now, because that's how they've been operating.
Eleanor, let me ask you a question. Pat makes that point, though, that regardless of the Britain, France, who might go to war in support of the United States with NATO, would Spain, Portugal? Isn't that diminishing of their influence, their interest in supporting the alliance? Doesn't that sort of have a legitimacy?
That's a hypothetical that's way out there. Spain and Portugal aren't going to muster enough troops. I mean, I just think that when you look at Europe, you see the countries that, from a military perspective, matter more.
Yeah.
And I think they are aligned with the U.S., and I think they would act in solidarity. Yeah. Now, the war with China, if you want to think in warlike terms, it's an economic war.
Right.
And President Trump is going it alone with the tariff cease. But if he resisted China's influence and did it in a concerted way with the allies, maybe he would make some progress. Right now, all he's doing is driving the farmers in the Midwest into foreclosure.
Look, the money the United States is borrowing from China is the money China got from dumping all their goods into the United States because of the idiotic trade policies of Bush and Obama, both running up $500, $700 billion trade deficits every single year for a decade. I mean, bringing them into the WTO. This is the stupidity of American foreign policy post-Cold War.
We got a lot of bargains at Walmart, though.
I would say NATO is the most successful military alliance in history, maintains prosperity and peace.
Amen.
Eleanor is right on this one. Okay, issue 2, a question of law.
Sir, why is that impeachable conduct?
If the president uses his office for personal gain, the only recourse available under the Constitution is for him to be impeached.
Democrats and Republicans this week questioned separate legal experts to make their cases for and against President Trump's impeachment. A report from congressional Democrats matched the party's witness testimony in favor of impeachment. But Republicans say the impeachment inquiry is unfair on the president, lacking legal due process.
Eleanor, did Democrats score any big wins on impeachment this week?
I don't think this is about scoring any big wins. I think it's about laying the sort of the constitutional academic predicate. And the one constitutional lawyer there that the Republicans had called, Jonathan Turley, who's done a lot of television over the years and was a very big proponent of impeaching President Clinton because he had lied under oath, basically is saying what the president has done is impeachable if they can nail down every last fact.
Right.
And he's arguing that they need to slow this down until they hear from John Bolton, Mr. Pompeo, the acting chief of staff, on and on. But the White House is not making any of those available, and the way our court system works, unless the courts decided to expedite it, it would be, justice delayed is justice denied. So I think the Democrats are doing the right thing and moving ahead with articles of impeachment, and they will be voted on most likely before the end of the year.
Pelosi and company have decided to fast track this, get it over and done with, get the president impeached, get it over to the U.S. Senate, where acquittal will be on straight party line vote, like it will be almost straight party line vote in the House. And I think the point of the conservatives and Republicans is, whatever you say about this negotiation with the Ukrainians, it's not a crime, it's not impeachable, it was never consummated, and why are you Democrats so terrified of letting the American people decide it in an election?
Was Watergate consummated?
The Watergate was consummated.
I don't know about that.
I just want to remind you, Pat, and everybody else, that I forecast that this impeachment hearing and process would be over by Christmas time, and you were astounded by that possibility. But they're on a tight time.
The trial won't. The trial will go to the Senate in January.
That's correct.
Siraj?
I was close.
So, all right, I don't think the Democrats scored any big wins here. I think it is a lot more about politics because it is about tainting President Trump in the lead up to the 2020 presidential election. Pelosi's a very smart politician. She knows what she's doing. It's not about getting it past the finish line and actually removing Trump from office, but it is in the context of the 2020 election because an president who has been impeached by the House, to at least a lot of independent voters in the Rust Belt states that they lost in 2016, they might get those back.
So you think this is helping Trump?
I think it helps both parties in some way, but at the end, Trump can still make this a case that it's about a witch hunt because it doesn't necessarily meet the threshold of impeachment.
The mountain of evidence basically proves it's not a witch hunt. The facts are not really disputed. The president's...
But the quid pro quo stuff, if that's what you're hinging
Where's
on.
the crime?
Exactly.
The crime is
Bribery,
attempting...
come on.
The crime is attempting to extort an ally in exchange for political dirt.
Give us the Burisma file, please, and we'll give you a meeting in the White House.
Yeah, the
How
fact
horrible.
The thing is, almost everybody's got their minds made up already. We're a poor body to be judging this because it's the folks who don't have their minds made up who really be deciding the upcoming election.
Their mind made up. We're going to be deciding in both the House and Senate.
Yeah, but the real verdict's going to come with the election. And the folks who have made their minds up on this.
Exactly. You and I can agree on that.
There's a principle involved here that if the president is misbehaving, you push ahead. Otherwise, people say, well, why didn't you move sooner? Like we were talking about Crimea and Ukraine. Why didn't you move sooner?
And it's not merely a principle. He is actively engaged in trying to get countries to intervene in the 26th election. Rudy Giuliani, his personal lawyer, is in Ukraine as we speak.
Don't you want to know what Hunter Biden was up to there when Joe was over there?
We know what Hunter was up to.
Why can't we know about that?
We know what he was up to, and why is that an issue for the election anyway? I mean, the fact is, Joe Biden almost went into a push-up round with an Iowa voter over this issue.
Well, we'll get on that on the next issue.
Even though Joe Biden, nobody's accusing him of anything with any evidence.
The idea that Trump, this is what the distinguishable part here is. If you believe that Trump was asking Zelensky for a favor for the national interest that's him using his executive power to advance the interests of the country.
Contrary
now,
to
if you already,
Congress.
but if you already hate Trump, you think he's advancing his own personal interests, which is what many of these impeachment advocates are.
It's not about hating Trump. Like Nancy Pelosi said, don't mess with me
Well,
when you're going to talk about hate.
With respect to election interference,
no,
Democrats seem to only be
no,
focused on Russia.
it's about
Let
the
Siraj finish.
Constitution. It's about
Let
the
Siraj finish, and I'll come back.
Why is it only that
Do you believe
Democrats
the Ukraine narrative?
Well,
do you believe Ukraine
let him
wanted to
answer.
sabotage Hillary's election?
Well, no. I think there have been many countries that try to interfere in U.S. elections.
Let's get.
And if we want to actually
let Siraj
Ukraine,
finish, come on, let him
if
finish.
we
Let
want
Siraj
to
speak.
actually, if we want to be open and transparent and honest about election interference, we should at least know what the extent of election interference Ukraine engaged in.
And then Eleanor, and then Pat.
The intelligence community, the new report out of the FBI,
you trust the intelligence community?
Bull Durham report have all said Ukraine had not. Yes, but
the intelligence community said there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. How can you trust anything?
Yes, Tom. Suppose Trump gets into office, and you find out that days after Biden was in Ukraine dropping the hammer on him, little Hunter was hired by these folks for $50,000 a month. Would it be outrageous if the president, instead of going himself to Ukraine, said to the Attorney General, find out if there's anything wrong or anything done illicit, because it stinks to high heaven?
Well, that explanation stinks to high heaven, because you're distorting the whole thing, making Trump look like a choir boy trying to contain corruption.
I've never said he was a choir boy.
Well, we all know what he's about, and the facts from everybody who has had anything to do with this.
You're a journalist. Why don't you want to know what happened in Ukraine between Hunter and Joe and the $50,000 a month?
Because there have been investigations. The FBI has looked at it. The intelligence communities have looked at it. Who do you want to look at it, and you want to come out with the conclusions you want to come out with? The special prosecutor.
All right,
you want
so
a special prosecutor now?
Let's have a round robin here, okay? Siraj, where are we going to be 2 months from now on this impeachment issue?
I think we'll be done with it. I think the Senate will acquit President Trump, and that'll be it. That'll be it.
All right, Pat.
We'll be at the end of a trial which will exonerate the president of all these charges we've heard.
He will be acquitted, and there perhaps 3 or 4 Republicans will vote to convict, and so a majority of the U.S. Senate may think that this president should be removed from office. And he will go into re-election having been impeached, which I would think would give some people, even if they are huge defenders of him, some pause about whether they want to give him another 4 years.
Clarence.
Yeah, I think, well, everybody's right. We're going to have probably impeachment followed by a not guilty verdict. Exoneration, though, Pat, I don't think we have exoneration when you've got all the lined up evidence in the Mueller report.
We're moving on.
We're moving on.
I think it'll still be rumbling on. Acquittal, but it'll rumble on. Harris heads home.
It is with deep regret, but also with deep gratitude, that I am suspending our campaign today.
Blaming a funding shortfall, Senator Kamala Harris ended her presidential campaign this week. The announcement marks a striking reversal of fortunes for the senator. After all, just a few months ago, Harris was widely touted as a frontrunner to secure the Democratic Party's presidential nomination.
Clarence, why did Kamala Harris fail?
Which king was it who said this pudding has no theme? Or was that Samuel Johnson? Churchill, okay. This is the problem. She did great. She peaked out in that first debate with her confrontation with Joe Biden over her personal narrative and this issue of great importance was when people really looked at her and said, oh, I want to see her go up against Trump. But she hasn't done anything like that, had a moment like that since, and she really doesn't have that theme, that purpose to her campaign, which ironically was a big problem for Hillary Clinton. And for that matter, John McCain. A campaign has got to have some kind of a driving theme that's going to pull people together.
Tom, what this does, though, you take her out, you got the 4 front runners, they're all whites. You got all 6 people in the debate now are white folks. Cory Booker's not going to be in the debate. Julian Castro's not going to be in the debate. The Hispanic folks and the African Americans are going to be out of that. And I think there's a real problem for the Democratic Party, and whoever is nominated, if it's, let's say it's Joe Biden, it's going to have a woman and or an African American on the ticket, because this is supposed to be a party of minorities, and it's It's very all pale face right now, and it's
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's not going to be an issue if Joe Biden gets the nomination to have somebody to his left, somebody younger, some person of color, a woman. That's what presidential tickets are about. They're about balancing. And nobody is entitled to be president. Nobody's entitled to go to the distance. She tried. She started out good. I thought she made a phony argument against Joe Biden, and a lot of Democrats didn't like that. She's a great senator. She goes back to the Senate. She's probably still on the potential list of a vice presidential candidate.
Do you think she'd make a good one?
Well, yeah, but
Maybe with
I
Joe
think
Biden.
the reason this field is so big is we've got this notion that if you run for president, it's a career builder. You might get a TV contract, you might get a book deal, whatever. And I don't think Kamala Harris actually helped herself in this. And so I think it's a little bit of a warning to people, about, it's not just a free ride to
Kamala
run for
Harris
president.
failed because of her background as San Francisco District Attorney and California Attorney General. In the 2019 Democratic Party, being a prosecutor is not a popular thing with respect to her locking up hundreds, if not a couple thousand people for marijuana possession and then going on to the Breakfast Club and laughing about having smoked marijuana. Like, that doesn't play well at all. But with respect to Joe Biden, having a particular, African American or woman or some minority on his ticket, he doesn't need to have that because he's going up against Trump, and people hate Trump just enough that they might actually vote for an all-white ticket.
For his own party. I mean, look, take Biden-Klobuchar, which I think would be a pretty strong ticket. However, what would the African American community say, and what would the Hispanic community say, and the others saying, what are we doing? We're supposed to be a party of minorities, and look, we're all shut out.
I'm glad to hear you care about diversity,
No,
Pat.
it's because I know you folks do.
Thank you very much. Look at black voters in South Carolina right now. About 2/3 of them. He's
Biden
number
is
one.
fine.
Right.
But you've predicted Biden's demise every week we've done this show. Now suddenly you're worried about him diversifying the ticket enough.
I'm not worried about him, but I do agree.
Like
I do agree that Biden has come back and held on strong. I still think he's going to be a disaster. You put him in that general election with his gaffes.
Okay.
And Elizabeth Warren actually didn't help herself at all in the last debate when she said that we should expand the military. That did not play well with progressives at all. And you saw her pretty
Biden is doing better now.
And she also partly backpedaled on the Medicare for all, which is actually a sensible thing to do for her to do. But the left wing of the party, she'd been a hero.
Who's the next to go?
Oh, that's a good question. Now,
John Delaney.
Oh yeah,
no, Delaney.
He'll last through Iowa.
It could be Cory Booker.
Yeah, Booker. I can see Booker or Castro.
Or Julian Castro, yeah.
And what about Deval Patrick? He doesn't seem to be.
He got two guys at his first rally.
He's
got to build on that a little
I think
bit.
Bloomberg only goes up.
Okay.
Well, Bloomberg and Deval Patrick both have that Wall Street problem, with and that's with the party.
Bloomberg's got a $50 billion asset that looks pretty good compared.
Any
to
chance that President Trump drops Pence from the ticket?
No. Absolutely not.
Okay. Who's going to be the VP?
No. I said Stacey Abrams a couple of weeks ago,
Okay.
but we're so far from that.
Okay.
Let's give it a rest.
Let me just say that I think you're going to hear a boomlet. It was my prediction for vice president for Biden if he gets the nomination and if he gets past Iowa, New Hampshire, Michelle Obama.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Elizabeth Warren.
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, Michelle?
Michelle's not going to happen, but I'm really amused by how many people think that she is in the running or close to it, and most of those people are Republicans.
She needs to build up.
What did she sell, 60 million books?
Michelle Obama hates politics. I mean,
she hates politics.
Remember how she didn't want
in the same instance,
run.
in the same case with Hillary Clinton, you need to have the campaign infrastructure there to mount a run, and it's not there for either of them.
Yeah,
and you have to start picking people off from other campaigns, which they're not going to do.
Predictions.
The Democrats are going to vote on a prescription drug cost containment package before the end of this year that will require Medicare to negotiate drug prices, which sounds very mundane, but actually would have a huge impact on drug prices. And it's what President Trump has said he wants all along. So big question, will Mitch McConnell allow a vote? He doesn't allow a vote on anything
Let's
else.
go to Pat.
Mine was there might be a boomlet for Michelle Obama.
Okay. Siraj.
Joe Biden is currently 4th in Iowa and New Hampshire. I think he's not going to go any higher than that. I think he will finish 4th in both of those states, yet still win the Democratic nomination.
Clarence.
Cory Booker will be rising up as a VP possibility.
Why do you think that?
Because he has been able to bridge somewhat the Wall Street and the city vote, and he is he's a good orator.
Eleanor, do you agree with that?
Yeah, he's a uniter, not a divider, to borrow an old phrase from George W.
Pat?
Bush. But
I think, he's an African American, and as I said, I think Biden needs a woman and/or a person of color.
Okay. I predict that the British government will attribute the release of a NHS document to Russian hackers. Though that I think will happen. But Siraj, any other final thoughts you want to add?
You know, there was a Peloton commercial that aired this past week, and it got a lot of outrage. And what's interesting is I had a tweet that went a little viral, mocking it. And
Even
I
I saw
just
it.
Okay, that's it.
Quick. I was just saying, I never received more hate for that than I did
All right.
after 9/11
Do we
as
all
an
get it?
American
All right.
Muslim living in the United States.
I predict that the British government will attribute the hacking of an NHS document to the Russian Federation. Thank you for watching.